Thank you, everyone, for making time to join us today. My name is Felicia Antonio, Keep It On Campaign Manager at Access Now. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Felicia Antonio, Keep It On Campaign Manager at Access Now. Thank you so much for making time to join us today for this webinar brought to you by Access Now and the Amhara Association of America. I lead the Keep It On campaign at Access Now, and Access Now is an international human rights organization that defends and extends the digital rights of people and communities at risk. For those who are not familiar with the Keep It On campaign, this is a global, it's a global campaign that unites over 334 organizations in what has become the world's leading coalition pushing for an end to internet shutdowns. Why did we decide to have this webinar today? We are organizing this webinar to draw attention to the ongoing situation in the Amhara region, following the outbreak of conflict in 2023 between the Amhara Fano and the Ethiopian military. The Ethiopian government declared a state of emergency and also implemented an internet blackout. And then this shutdown had serious implications for human rights, economic development, access to information, and civil society's ability to function. And so this webinar seeks to explore the diverse consequences of internet shutdowns in the region, particularly during the ongoing conflict. And then also, we would focus on the human rights implications, as I indicated, the socio-economic and the political implications of internet shutdowns. And then we would also provide some recommendations or pathways for ensuring that digital rights are respected, even in times of crisis. To help me dissect this issue, I have 5 experts. Unfortunately, one is yet to join us, but I have 4 of them here now. They are experts, activists, as well as scholars who would be sharing their insights, experiences, and strategies for mitigating these impacts. And then for those watching or our viewers, you would be able to understand or have a better understanding of the ongoing situation in the Amhara region, and also how internet shutdowns affect fundamental human rights and how people are mobilizing to raise awareness as well as to push back against internet shutdowns. This event is being streamed live on Access Now's YouTube channel. Viewers can ask questions, share feedback, or make comments via the live chat button on the channel. And then we'll pause in between to address these questions or comments so we can continue to engage you throughout the webinar. And so now I would call each speaker to introduce themselves very briefly, and then we will kick off the conversation. So I'll start with you, Enoch. Please introduce yourself very briefly, like 5 seconds. And then I would pass on to Kusuma, One, and then to Dr. Johannes.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm Henok Ababa, and I'm an advocate for human rights. I'm based in the US. I will be speaking on the socio-economic impact of the internet shutdown in the Amhara region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kusma, I think you're next.
Okay, thank you, Felicia. And hello, everyone. My name is Kulsuma Noor. I have experience in media research and also academia. We're talking about the impact of the ongoing internet shutdown on women and girls' rights in the Amhara region. And I'm based in Addis Ababa. Thank you.
Thank you, One.
Thank you, Felicia, and Access Now team, who has been an important and very excellent partner for Amhara Association of America. My name is Honaman Dafro. I'm at Amhara Association of America, or in short, AAA Advocacy Director, and I coordinate the documentation of human rights abuses in Ethiopia through a team based within Ethiopia. And I'll be talking about our work and in relation to the human rights abuses specifically as a result of the telecom blackout in the region. But thanks again, Felicia and the Access Now team for this partnership that we've been having for some time now.
Thank you. And I think Dr. Johannes, you're next.
Thank you, Felicia. My name is Johannes. So currently I'm working on digital human rights law. And I will gonna talk about impact of internet shutdown on human rights and humanitarian support in Amhara region and beyond. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, as I said, we are missing one speaker. So once she joins, we would introduce her as well. All right. So just to set the context for the conversation, I want to give a very brief overview of what Access Now and the Keep It On Coalition has been documenting over the years with regards to internet shutdowns. And so since 2016, we've seen or documented at least 1,300 or 300 incidents of shutdowns. Last year, we saw a staggering increase in the number of shutdowns. We documented 283 incidents in 39 countries. And then this represented a 41% increase from 2022, when we documented 201 incidents of shutdowns in 40 countries. So this sets a very concerning trend. And we can clearly see that internet shutdowns are increasing and they're spreading across the globe. And then for the first time since 2016, conflict also emerged as the leading driver for internet shutdowns. We documented 74 incidents of conflict-related shutdowns in 9 countries. And then worryingly, these shutdowns also enable perpetrators to shroud grave human rights abuses, including murder, torture, rape, and apparent war crimes against people with impunity. For instance, we saw 51 cases of such shutdowns in 11 countries that coincided with such grave human rights abuses. And so, Hone, I want to come to you to highlight what Amhara Association of America has been doing to track the human rights violations and abuses happening in the region since the conflict began last year and even prior to that. And then also, could you share with us some of the strategies you're using to draw attention to these issues? And then regarding the shutdown that was imposed last year, what can you tell us? What is the status of the shutdown as we speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Farisha. TPLF is a US-based organization that was established in 2016, and over the years, the kind of things we do have continued to increase. So initially, we were a small community-based organization, but over the past few years, because of the attacks against Amharas across Ethiopia and the lack of adequate reporting by stakeholders, including national and international human rights organizations, we have established a dedicated team within Ethiopia, a team of lawyers, journalists that regularly monitor human rights violations against Amharas primarily, but also more broadly against Ethiopians. And my role is to coordinate that team and make sure that reports are distributed to key stakeholders. So we have documented some widespread human rights violations in the region. But I think before going to those, it's important for people to understand the context for this war. One, although we're talking today about the situation in Amhara region, actually the main reason why there is war in Amhara region is because of the attacks against Amharas outside Amhara region, particularly in Oromia region. Over the last 5 years alone, TPLF has documented thousands of massacres targeting Amara civilians. And this has led into political resentment in Amara region. There were several rounds of protests within Amara region, people calling for an end to this genocide against Amara people. And we did a proper legal analysis why we're referring it as genocide and how it has fulfilled all the definitions that an attack would require to be classified as such. Over these years, Amaras have protested, asking the government to end its own attack against Amaras, but also to fulfill its responsibility to protect Amaras in across Ethiopia. And these protests, on the one hand, has led into attacks against protesters, but also often were succeeded by shutdown of the internet within Amara region, even prior to the start of this war. So I think people need to understand that the broader implication of the conflict is nationwide. It's not just Amara region, and the underlying reasons for this war are national rather than region specific. Second, I think people need to understand that this is a continuation of the war in northern Ethiopia. So many people are aware of the Pretoria Agreement, and there is a false perception that's out there that since the signing of that Pretoria Agreement, the conflict in Ethiopia has stopped. In reality, because of the Pretoria Agreement, Amaras were not invited to present to their demands and negotiate on them. The Amaras felt they were neglected, and the Pretoria Agreement was a war pact between TPLF and the Abiy regime. That has led into the Abiy regime trying to disarm the Fano fighters, which ended up being the main reason or the immediate triggering of this widespread fighting in Amara region. So in a way, while there were triggering factors that has to do with attempting to disarm the Fanos, the conflict is a continuation of the northern Ethiopia war that we have seen since 2020. And in terms of the atrocities against Amaras or civilians, I think the point I want to emphasize is, as always is the case when there are widespread internet shutdown or telecommunication blackout, we don't know the true extent of atrocities. Perhaps we may never know because of the continued effort to hide this human rights violations by the region forces. But through our team of investigators, we have documented widespread attacks against civilians. If we just talk about massacres that targeted civilians, TPLF has documented about 240 massacres within Amara region. And our definition of a massacre is at least 3 people has to be killed in just a single incident. And we're not counting, killings that involve 1 or 2 people. But with that definition, we have documented 240 massacres since the declaration of the state of emergency in Amara region in August 2023. And due to these massacres, we have documented closer to 4,000 civilians. And this is just what we have verified and documented. Obviously, the figures are way higher than that. If we take the extent of gender-based violence, it is the most difficult one to document, but actually a recent report from Universities Forum in Amara region reported that based on the data from health institutions, at least 5,000 sexual and gender-based violence victims have appeared in health institutions seeking service for the rape and other kinds of violence that they experienced. In terms of the number of people that have been rounded up and arrested, this is widespread, and it's not in Amara region alone. It's actually the state of emergency is even declared not just in Amara region, but across Ethiopia, wherever Amaras are. We have documented tens of thousands of people arrested and taken hostage, essentially in makeshift concentration camps. and that has led into an outbreak of communicative diseases, and that further, endangering the safety of these people around it, just because of their identity. Even in places like Addis Ababa, regime forces ask for an ID, and when they realize the person is an Amara, either they negotiate a ransom or a payment to avoid arrest, or they just send them to this concentration camp. So we're talking about, thousands, tens of thousands of people. But I think the most pronounced and very widespread pattern we have seen when it comes to human rights violation in Amara region is the frequent use of drone attacks to target and strike public institutions. We're talking about schools, health institutions, and this has recently spiked. In the first 6 months, AAA was able to document 53 drone attacks where at least 551 civilians were killed. And we're not counting drone attacks that are not targeting civilians, but just civilians. In the first 6 months of the conflict, we noticed that at least 551 civilians were killed by drone attacks that were 53 in number. And then it kind of decreased, but recently, after the IMF and the World Bank gave loan for the regime, the regime again purchased weapons, and over the last month, between September 29 and end of October, where we are, we documented 43 attacks that targeted civilians just in 1 month. That means several drone attacks in a single day, and a lot of these drone attacks involve multiple strikes. And that has led into, again, hundreds of civilians being killed. Obviously, the 90% of children are out of school, and Fano forces claim they have controlled at least 90% of the region in Amara region. So that has led into disruption of school services, health institutions, just because there are no supplies, and the government is not willing to extend supplies to control areas under the control of Fano. We are talking about, humanitarian aid not being delivered for about 18 months now, and the government continues to block access for humanitarian aid and all that. So I guess the overall picture is there is widespread human rights violations and humanitarian lack of humanitarian aid, but the situation is not getting enough attention, mainly because of this false assumption that the Pretoria Agreement has turned things around and the conflict has kind of scaled down, when in reality, it has only gotten worse. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the overview and for also acknowledging the difficulty you and your team face in documenting these human rights abuses. But I think you're also doing great by being able to highlight these acts of violence against civilians during conflict situations. And indeed, as I indicated, the 2023 reports, these shutdowns enable perpetrators to cover up all these heinous crimes against civilians or people and communities. And in your response, you did talk a bit about the impacts or the gender implications of these internet disruptions during conflict. And so I'll just go to Kusuma to give us, share with us what the impacts of the shutdown is for women and girls' rights in the region, and what are the key issues you would like to draw attention to, the attention of the global, the international community to. Kusuma, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Felicia. So, like Hone was talking earlier, internet blackouts in conflicts in general, not just in Amara region, but in conflicts in general, have like serious consequences on the communities and And when it's with marginalized communities and when it's with women and girls, these consequences are exacerbated. And by cutting off access to internet, that means access to essential information is being cut, access to supporting services and also opportunities are being cut off. And in particular, this shutdown has intensified the vulnerability of women and girls, and whose voices are most of the time silenced during crisis. So it makes the situation even more worse. So when we discuss about like what are the impacts that women and girls are facing due to this internet blackouts and internet shutdown, is that one is internet and telecommunications are telecommunication systems are very critical for getting access to information. They're very important, for coordination of humanitarian assistance, and this can make more difficult for civilians, women and girls, to get access to vital information, to report abuses, gender-based violences that occur during conflicts, and to seek assistance during this time. So this increases their vulnerability to this kind of attacks and gender-based violences. So what this means is that internet shutdowns will increase vulnerability. It increases vulnerability of women and girls to violence, and also that means in other words it impedes accountability. So having access to information, access to internet is a human right, and having access to internet also means that survivors get to report incidents of violence, and as it's happening in real time. So whenever there is internet shutdown, that means then that means they will not be documented, that this acts and violence will not be reported. So which in turns means that there would be lack of accountability to the perpetrators. All actors in the conflict, maybe not just from the government or from the fighters, but everyone within the community that is taking part in this conflict. So gender-based violences get exacerbated. And so yeah, this is the most important focus, that the shutdown reduces the visibility of human rights. So, everything is covered up, and that there is invisibility, and it allows the abuse to continue unchecked. So that is why it is important for, the international community to put pressure on communities, and to put pressure on the Ethiopian government, to put pressure on international organization that work on documenting and addressing human rights violation, and that work with protecting women's rights in different areas and capabilities. So yeah, but maybe I could say more with follow-up questions. Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much for your insights. And indeed, internet shutdowns amplify the suffering of vulnerable communities and people. And we've also seen stories where women are not able to have access to or to continue their economic activities online. And I know you're going to speak to that, how internet shutdowns affect or the implications of the socioeconomic impact of shutdown. So I'll just hand over to you to come in and also share with us what you're seeing with regards to the implications of shutdowns in that regard.
Oh, okay, thank you, Felicia. So now we're talking about Amhara region. So let me give some introductory information about Amhara region. So Amhara region is located in the north western part of Ethiopia, and it's the home of a population of around 40 million people. But and this is, I mean, this region is the second populous region, and also in terms of area coverage, it is the third largest region in Ethiopia. But even though like the Amhara region population is around 40 million and it's the second populous region, it doesn't mean that Amhara is the second populous people in Ethiopia or ethnic group in Ethiopia, because there is a misconception regarding that, because there are so many or millions of Amhara who are living in Addis Ababa and also outside of Amhara region. So they're not counted on that. So if we count all those population, Amhara people is, or Amhara ethnic group, it can be considered as the first in terms of population. So now we're only focusing on those Amhara people who are living in Amhara region, because the war is waged on Amhara region only. Like, I mean, the actual war is on Amhara region, but the war is waged on Amhara people, because, you know, when last time when we hear about the declaration of state of emergency, so the Attorney General was saying that the emergency declaration can be applicable on everywhere Amhara people live. So the war is waged against Amhara people, but now like the active war is going on, like the fighting is going on in Amhara region. And the Amhara people is mostly an agrarian people, like agrarian society. And Amhara people practice like mixed farming, like mostly they plow land, and also they have also cattle, so they practice mixed farming. And around, I think, maybe probably 15% or more of the population is urban dwellers. So this is in Amhara region. So when we see when we come to the today's topic, internet or internet blackout, I think the internet blackout, even though it's today's topic, it doesn't mean that it is the only human rights violation that are prevalent in Amhara region. So as Hone has expressed it or explained it in detail, so the human rights violation is beyond that, and it's gross. I think the human rights violations are related to each other. So even though we talk about internet blackout and the effects of internet blackout on Amhara region, it doesn't. And if we give access to internet, it doesn't mean that like it can be a panacea for the human rights violation in Amhara region, because there are other activities which are raging the region, like in terms of human rights violation. So when we see why the government is doing that, I think the government it is a kind of collective punishment, because the government thinks that the population supported the Fano, and they wanted to punish the people like totally, including the civilian population. So they are considering or taking it as a punitive tool to punish the whole population by cutting internet and other related services. And also they wanted to turn the population against the Fano, because if there is no internet service, and if there is no other internet related service like banking and others, so the government think that the people will be hopeless, and they will turn against the Fano to lay down their arms. That's a kind of strategy which is not working so far, and I don't think it will work also in the future, because it's the people are fighting with a real cause. And so when we see like the impact of internet shutdown in Amhara region, we can divide it like I'm gonna focus on the socio-economic impact. So when we see the economic impact, it is like disrupting the economic development of the region, and also worsening the already poor society who are leading impoverished life. So when we see the urban economy, like currently it is like most of the urban economy depends on internet access, and also other related service like banking. They need internet access. Hotel, they need internet access, and also a small scale economic activities also they need internet access, or other related like landline connection and social media also connection. So those are interrupted. So without them, the urban society can't practice or can't engage into their productive economic impact. So even though it's right now, it's difficult to quantify like how much the impact really is in terms of quantity. So, but we can still see or feel the impact because our family are living there, so we know how desperate they are, how they are impacted by this kind of unwarranted measures that come from the government. The other one is like in the agriculture too, the society, as I said before, it is mostly it's agrarian. So now the government, I mean the society, they know prices, or they know prices through like phone calls or internet, like social media sometimes, because for instance, if we see the ECX, the commodity exchange, they fix the price, or they tell to the farmers that the today's or the day's price of the products by using internet. So the society or the farmers, they don't have any way to know what the price of their products is. And also weather forecast also, people they rely, because when we're not talking about illiterate farmers, because the new generation, I think 40 or 45% of the society in Amhara region is a young population, and they are literate, and also they are not living in urban areas only. So they went back to the rural parts of Amhara region, and they are like engaging in agriculture also. So those literate or educated farmers, they depend on their information, I mean the information that comes from the internet or the social media. So they are cut from that, so they don't know what the price is, they don't know what the market price is, whether they have no information about the weather forecast. And also they can't get agricultural advices like from developmental agents that are trained by the government. And they are related with the economies, like the inflation pressure, because inflation is really high in Ethiopia. And you can imagine when there is no when there is, the impact is on the supply chain. So the supply chain is disrupted, like the supply chain of resources, and also even the products, it's disrupted by because of the information flow. There is no that reliable information flow right now at the information age. So because of that, you can imagine how the inflation pressure can be on our society. Maybe the second one can be the impact can be on the education sector. We have heard recently that the Amhara region, like registration to kick off school is really, really low, and partly because the information is not disseminated for the people for all over. And the other, we can I mean like 10th grade, I think 12th grade exam was given by online, I think, as part of the Ministry of Education policy. So I mean, which was really like the decision was impactful on Amhara region or other parts of the area, or other parts of Ethiopia where internet is not available, because how could you give exam online when there is no internet coverage all over Ethiopia, or some parts are cut down from the world by the policy, which is which is promulgated or by the government. So because of that, I think many people in Ethiopia, like grade 12 students, they didn't take this preparatory living exam. So because of that, they didn't join also the universities, and the other, like there are more, I think more than 8 or 9 universities in Amhara region. So they depend, the information flow, they depend on internet and other connections. So because of the cut down and the blockade, they are not even functioning properly. So, and as part of that, there are large population which their livelihood is depend on the universities itself. So if the universities are not working, so that's affecting the teachers, that's affecting the administrative staff, that's also affecting the students, and also that's affecting the society whose livelihood is depend on the physical existence of the university in every direction of Amhara region. So that is also an impact. It's a meaningful impact on Amhara people. The other, we can as it's the human capital decline. So as I mean, for the last 5 or 6 years, we can say students in Amhara region are not going to school. And currently, because of the active war, they're not going to school. So you can imagine how the human capital of Amhara people or Amhara region is declining. So that's also another impact. So the impact of the shutdown can be also felt in the public service and the humanitarian aid. I think Hona has been talking about that. So, the humanitarian organizations, they depend on the internet and informations on social media also to coordinate their relief efforts. So if there is no available resource, and if they don't communicate to each other, if they don't have information where like the impacted population is really located, and if they don't really know the security situation of the area, that can really hamper the humanitarian aid. So that's why there is really limited humanitarian aid in Amhara region. So the other one is the public service. Government gives services, like government institutions, they give service for the society, and many of them, they depend on internet and other connectivities. So if there is no such kind of connectivity, the public can't get the service from the government, including banks. Bank, they're really modernized. So, like every service, I can say, depends on that. So that's also impactful. So yeah, do you want to say something?
Thank you. Yes, just to prompt you that you're running over time a bit.
Okay.
So maybe you can wrap up, and then we come to Johannes, and then we'll have some time to take maybe a few rounds from all the speakers again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can wrap up your.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the other impact is like in the social and communal ties. Amhara people is like lives in a community, and so you can say without any communication and without information flow, how can they engage in that communal life? And there is cultural and religious life is really strong in Amhara population. So that how you can imagine how that can be affected, and also there is no religious gatherings because of those things, and also the psychological impact of the society or the Amhara people who are living outside of Amhara region, because we can't speak to our people, we can't speak to our family, we can't help them. So we don't know their status. You can imagine the psychological impact of that too, and the gender related impact is also, as I think it has been said by Kulusma. So that's also impactful. So I think the internet blackout totally is, I think it deepened the economic inequality, and it's unravel like the social structure, and it's limit access to the vital services also, and it serves as a tool to suppress dissenting voices, and it has a huge impact on Amhara region, or in particular in Amhara society in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much for just given the picture, which looks very, very scary, because you can see that lives are really integrated online, as explained, and so a shutdown means it's going to affect all aspects of people's lives, as we have seen repeatedly being mentioned in the conversation. All right, so Dr. Johannes, I'm coming to you to let us, you're doing a research on the implications of internet shutdowns on human rights in times of conflict. I know a lot has been said already, but then can you tell us what are some of the findings of your research, and are you seeing a connection between shutdowns and the implication on humanitarian crisis, which is an obvious answer, but we'd like to learn more about your research and what you're seeing, and maybe if there are some findings that have not been mentioned in the conversation, you can also include that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Felicia. So basically, Henok and Hona and other speakers, including Kulsuma, just made my life easier because they already touched some of our findings as well. So basically, we are doing research on the impacts of like internet shutdown in conflict affected areas, including mainly the Amhara region, the Wallagga province, and the Tigray region. Already the Tigray region is now back to normalcy after the Pretoria Agreement, but the ongoing conflict in Amhara region is still, like in the past 15 months or so, the internet has been blocked. So, some of our findings includes like these internet shutdowns impact civil and political rights as well as socio-economic rights. Before that, I think let me give some context, like human rights context as well as kind of political context in the country as well. Let me begin with this bold claim that Ethiopia is synonymous with internet shutdown, especially since 2016 when the Access Now team, the Keep It On campaign was started. Ethiopia is the top country that each year implemented internet shutdown. For example, the Amhara region in particular has been a victim of this internet shutdown. For example, when the high-profile assassination was made back in 2018, 19, and also a year after during the COVID pandemic, and when the war in Tigray also started, parts of Amhara region were in dark. Beyond that, as Henok earlier touched, like the Amhara people also live in other regions, including in Oromia region, especially in Wallagga province, when atrocities were committed by armed non-state actors such as the Oromo Liberation Army. The Amhara people were also become victims in that region. So the internet was also blocked in that parts of Ethiopia. So I think the Amhara people is now become a victim both within its region as well as outside its region. So that also leads to this political sentiment by the ruling party, the Prosperity Party, that internet is neither water nor air. This is a narrative, the official narrative that the government adopted since 2019. Of course, paradoxically, the government seeks to kind of make Ethiopia digitally connected under the so-called Digital Strategy 2025. But unfortunately, the government is backfiring its promised goals by saying internet is neither water nor air, so that they can shut whenever they want. So this needs to be deconstructed, challenged, as well as brought to court for action as well. Having said that, in our research that touches 3 regions, we found that like internet shutdown affects civil and political rights, especially by civil and political rights, those that are found under the Ethiopian constitution, such as freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Even recently, 10 days ago, I think Freedom House has published its annual internet freedom report, and saying that the Ethiopian government, in the context of the ongoing armed conflict, has implemented this internet shutdown and led to jailing of, journalists and led to like exiling, activists, journalists who are documenting human rights abuses in the region as well. So in addition to that, in our research, like we interviewed some of key informants and they told us, like, especially those who are working in documenting human rights violation, the shutdown made their life difficult because they can't record,